lower income workers need a little bit more rights in terms of rest and leave.
Singapore was named the most overworked country in the Asia-Pacific region.
There is a cost to increasing leave provisions, and we must balance this carefully against what businesses can sustain.
If you obviously look at all the other studies, which show if you're more well-rested, you're more productive.
Giving them more leave won't necessarily fix that, and it's more about like workplace culture.
At least Singapore has that benchmark of 7.
So we can compare all we want with other countries, but there are Singaporeans here who need help and need a voice in Parliament. You know, I mean, one of the biggest thing I fight for in Parliament is time. And I think in this rat race-paced society, we often forget about time.
Hey everybody, I'm Drew. I hang out at Mothership during the weekdays and I have 24 days of leave left.
I'm Hannah. I write on the weekdays here at Mothership, and I have 17 days of annual leave left.
Hi, I'm Syah. I practically live at Mothership. I have 23 days of annual leave left. So welcome back to Season 2 of Bottlespin Debates. Please clap your hands. Yay! So here we discuss socio-political topics in the form of a gamified debate. And today is special because we have a special guest with us today, Louis Ng, Member of Parliament for Nee Soon GRC. He has been MP for Nee Soon GRC since 2015. So welcome, Louis.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, so for those of you who may not be aware, Louis is known for speaking up in Parliament for various issues, including increasing the annual leave entitlement in Singapore, which, you know, conveniently is our debate topic for today. So, Louis, can you give us maybe a little short introduction for yourself? And also, one question that we are all curious is, as an MP, how many days of annual leave do you guys actually get?
Secret.
It's just like the reserves.
Actually, we just have to apply for a leave of absence from Parliament.
Oh.
And I think I'm one of the few that is a full-time MP. So I can arrange my own schedule around things. So like we're here filming now. After this, I go pick up my kids, go back for meetings, and then have dinner with them tonight.
So it's like a pretty flexible work arrangement kind of thing.
That's why I'm lucky. I mean, I've got 3 young kids. I've got almost full flexible work arrangements. But at the same time, I realize not many have this kind of luxuries. And I think, again, someone needs to speak up for them and fight to make sure they have enough annual leave.
So it's like a little bit unlimited. There's no stipulation on how many days you can go on leave.
No, there isn't.
Wow.
Wow. How
Time
many days
to
of
be an
leave did you
MP.
take last year?
Zero.
Zero?
Always on the phone, always checking emails,
Okay.
always on social media.
Yeah, it's tough life.
So I guess it's 24/7 job, but again, some flexibility that I can work from home. We're often out on meetings on the ground anyway.
Nice. Okay, so regular eagle-eyed viewers of the podcast would know that we actually covered the 7-day minimum annual leave in Singapore topic last season, but now we have someone who is a legit like expert and like a advocate for increasing the minimum annual leave. That's why we decided to do another episode on the topic.
And because, Louis, you're our guest today, you have the special privilege of picking your team. So kind of an obvious question, but which side do you want to argue for, that 7 days is enough or it is not enough?
Not enough, of course.
Oh man, you didn't want to try and like play like devil's advocate or like see what the other side is like?
I'll leave it for you all to do that. And then I'll fight hard to make sure we increase it.
Wait, but before we begin, maybe just out of curiosity, right? Like, how did you actually become an advocate for like this like, annual leave topic?
Actually, it was raised at some of the dialogue sessions that we have only 7 days. And to be honest, I never knew this. But when someone raised it and I looked at it, and again, you compare with other countries, where so many other countries have obviously more than 7 days minimum. And I thought that's something we need to do.
Okay, I think it's time to spin the bottle.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh. No, but
It's
man.
okay.
Maybe try like a little bit less force.
no, you gotta use the force.
More force, more force. Does that count as...
One last try. It's me, right?
Oh, that's so fair. We did the same argument that time, didn't we?
Well, I get, yeah,
It's me!
Yes.
It's
I
okay,
mean-
now
I
we can
mean,
redeem
Louis's
ourselves.
team.
Yes, exactly. A chance for redemption. Okay, so we're gonna swap seats now. So before we give our opening statements, right, just a gentle reminder that the views expressed in this podcast do not necessarily represent the views of Mothership or us or associated parties. They might be Louis's views.
Why I got no disclaimer?
but- yeah. It's just a fun debate so that we can continue to hang out at Mothership on the weekdays.
Okay, so we are for the statement that the minimum 7-day annual leave is enough because it is mainly a benchmark. It's just there. You should give more. The government has said give more, but it's just there as a barrier because like other countries may not even have minimum annual leave, as our government has brought up a few times before as well, it is comparable to some of our other neighbours, and we do have enough public holidays.
All right, so we are in the against team, me and Luis, the better team, I should say, and we don't think that the minimum 7-day annual leave entitlement is enough. Singaporeans in general are very overworked, and this minimum 7-day annual leave entitlement only exacerbates the situation. And on the second point we're going to bring up, which we will elaborate more later on, is how low the minimum 7-day annual leave entitlement is compared to other countries, even the neighbouring countries that you guys brought up earlier. And the last point, I think the most important point that we need to highlight, is how this policy actually is extremely detrimental to the low-income workers in Singapore.
Our first point is that the 7 days of annual leave, it's just the bare minimum. It's just a guardrail. I think in the previous episode I said like the government's not meant to be your mother. Yeah, they just set like the safety rails, and then it's up to society to decide, or up to the employer and the employee to negotiate what would be beneficial or what would be the best arrangement for that individual. So if we were to make it too high, or if we were to increase it more than 7, that reduces the flexibility that employers have in what they can give their employees, or the kind of arrangements that, employers and employees can come together to negotiate and to agree on. What do you guys have to say about that?
Luis, take it away.
He's riding on his coattails right there.
So whatever you just said is true. That's just the benchmark. But the problem is many people follow it. And the data already shows. So 90% of the resident employees do receive more than 7 days. But here we're talking about the 10% now. And 10%, it always sounds very little. But when you look at the full-time resident employees, which is more than 1 million, actually 10% is quite a sizable number that are currently just receiving that 7 days. And then there's over 60% that receive 15 days or more. But then again, you got to look at the other side. If you are that 40% that only gets 14 days or less, surely you want more annual leave. But
those people in the 10%, right? Do we know how many of them have kind of more flexible work arrangements, or I know of people who will work 5 days on, 5 days off. So in those kind of situations, I imagine that maybe more than 7 days is not necessary. So that came to our third point really about how this policy might affect the lower income. Data actually is quite scary. Over the years, we're tracking it. It does look like the higher your income, the higher the number of days of annual leave. The irony I always say in Parliament is that it is the people who need the rest the most are probably the ones not getting the rest. They're doing the backbreaking work out in the hot sun. Giving flexible work arrangements is good. I fought for the right to flexible work arrangement, to legislate it even, but I think it cannot be zero-sum. Because again, many of the lower income jobs don't have access to FWAs. Again, so you look at the cleaners, how would they have flexible work arrangements? They got to go to work every day. If they don't have that annual leave entitlement, that minimum, then I think it's a problem for many of them.
But it has been brought up before by your fellow parliamentarians. I think Syah in 2022 said that they also have to think about businesses as well. So he said that we should also recognize that there is a cost to increasing leave provisions, and we must balance this carefully against what businesses can sustain. I think it was Kopo Kun recently that said that.
He said that you were quite passionate about this.
Oh yeah,
this
yeah.
issue.
He said you were
I
quite.
butted him because he said that to me 3 years ago, and so I gave him a 3 years break before I raised it.
It's quite a long break.
To come back about what exactly is this business cost. So again, very fair points. I always say this about it cannot be zero-sum, so it's not one or the other. So yes, we have to sustain the businesses, but also we need to sustain our workforce. As we really raised at the opening, we are a very overworked city. Some of the surveys show second only to Japan. In terms of work-life balance, it's 32 out of 40 cities that was surveyed. So it's a balance. I'm not saying 365 days of annual leave, but I am saying at least the minimum cannot be 7. It's just too low.
So what would you think is the best minimum number? What's that magic number?
Yeah, what are
For
you?
me?
Yeah, what are you trying to
50.
advocate for?
The middle ground for me will be 14. And I raised that as well because 14 still wouldn't affect the vast majority of companies. We keep saying this as a negative, that if we keep letting employees go on leave, it's bad for productivity, it's bad for company. But if you obviously look at all the other studies, which show if you're more well-rested, you're more productive. And so you might have to look at it the other way, where not giving enough annual leave might affect the business costs because people become unproductive. They need some rest. Let them go for a break, like you. Come back well-rested. And see, you're so productive today.
He was so productive yesterday.
It's because I drank an energy drink, and I'm currently looking for an energy drink sponsor. So if you're open to that. But you guys are kind of talking about, your point of like Singapore is being overworked, right? Just to play like devil's advocate, or just to do our job of being in the affirmative. There's like a train of thought that even if Singaporeans are overworked, which I think we can agree they are, giving them more leave won't necessarily fix that. And it's more about like workplace culture and like kind of the day-to-day, maintaining like a work-life balance day-to-day. Having like one long leave or taking more leave won't necessarily help it. Like we have to be more holistic in the way we address like the idea of being overworked.
Yeah, and if you look at like our examples, we all technically have accumulated annual leave more than 14 days, but we have not been taking them.
But we're not saying that we are overworked.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I love my job so much that like I don't want to take
just
leave.
choked. Yep. Yeah, we're fine. We love our job.
I mean, like, do you guys have any thoughts about that kind of idea? Like,
Obviously, it's very hard to say that right now.
Yeah,
And
how
it's hard
many
to
days of
see.
leave do you have left?
But unfortunately, right, I have a lot of leave days, but that's because that's an individual problem. Okay, and I think it goes the same for a lot of Singaporeans. And the reason why they don't take leaves is it's just part of us. We go insane sometimes when it comes to work. Previously, I mentioned I have 23 days of annual leave, and then off in lieu I have 16, which is insane, right? The cameraman is like looking at me like, what the hell? Yeah, I don't know why I'm not
She
good
just
at
came
taking
back
leaves.
from leave too. Imagine how much she had at the beginning of the year.
So annual leave is just one piece of the puzzle. And there are many things government is doing as well. There's the tripartite standard for work-life harmony. There's the new ones, the tripartite guidelines for flexible work arrangements. So there are many things we're doing to ensure that we have better work-life harmony. But I think the annual leave is the fundamental part that we need to address. That's really the base. Whenever anyone's talk about rest, we talk about annual leave, going on leave, taking a break. I mean, we've increased paternity leave as well. But that came back to the same thing when I raised in Parliament. The surveys again show it's the lower income men who are not taking the paternity leave. And so I keep saying that might be a fundamental thing we need to address, where lower income workers need a little bit more rights in terms of rest and leave.
How long have you been talking about this issue in Parliament for?
I think for the past 5 years now.
Do your colleagues ever get like annoyed at you, like always talking about this?
Go ask them. but for many issues, I talk about it repeatedly. And I think, again, that's important. So not just keep repeating it, but thinking about it from different angles, coming up with different recommendations, different solutions for government to look into, and then push again, ask them to come back with some data, some results to see whether there is indeed a problem or whether the solution that I've offered is possible. And many times now over the last 9 years I've been in Parliament, it takes time for change to happen. It doesn't happen overnight, but eventually change will happen. And I'm confident for annual leave, with more people speaking about it, I think that, I hope for the policy will change.
I mean, I can bring up some data, but it's all things that I expected. I mean, there's a study conducted by a bunch of US psychologists, and they found that Singapore was named the most overworked country in the Asia Pacific region. So this was a study done in 2022, and based on the study, Singapore also has the longest working hours per week at 45. And Singapore also has an average annual leave of 7, of course, and that is the lowest compared to other countries in the region. And the overworking culture in Singapore has left 73% of Singaporean employees unhappy and 62% feeling burnt out. These figures are expected. I think even when we just go on the ground and talk to our friends, we can already see that. Or when we just go home and look in the mirror, we can see that ourselves also, right? I can go on and on with more figures for how overworked Singapore is. Yeah, but it's all gonna be data that we already know.
Again, Kopo Kun recently brought up in April that productivity can come in many ways. I have no stats myself, so I'm just throwing senior ministers of state.
You're just reading replies back to me. I've really heard those replies.
These might sound familiar to you.
Oh my god, during edit, right, just put Kopo Kun's
Let me
face.
just tell Pokun I'm talking to you now.
Yeah. But he did point out there are better ways to increase productivity, like better training, job designing and equipment. So I'm sure you've heard these many times, but there has to be some truth behind what they're saying about the ways to increase productivity. It's not just, resting. There are ways that companies can manage workloads a bit better and help protect its employees as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with all that. But, one of the biggest things I fight for in Parliament is time. And I think in this rat race-paced society, we often forget about time. So I not just fight for annual leave. I think I'm known for fighting all all sorts of different leave. Paternity leave, fertility leave, childcare leave, childcare sick leave, parent care leave. And that really fundamentally is just to make sure that the people that we speak up for in Parliament have some time to spend with their loved ones. All the other things are important to increase productivity. But fundamentally, people need time to rest and spend with their loved ones. And I always say the same thing, which is what my father taught me, my late father. Do unto others what you want others to do unto you. How many of us want that 7 days of annual leave? Majority of us are in that 90% that get more than 7 days. But one day, if you find yourself in that 10%, do you really want just 7 days?
Do you think members of Parliament take that more than 7 days of leave, like set the example of resting and advocating for that rest themselves? Because I follow Parliament because of work. You guys argue for the whole day. Sometimes like 3 days when you guys were debating about housing, that lasted 3 days well into the middle of the night. And it kind of shows that you guys also don't really take those breaks.
You want all of them to go on.
So the irony is we had a long debate about mental health, right?
Yeah. Yes,
And
you
so
guys had
mental
such a
health is
long
important.
debate on that. Yeah, so don't you think it's a bit like ironic a bit? And how could maybe our leaders show that, rest is important, we should take rest too?
And we do. I think many ministers, PM Lee also used to post about his overseas trip where he gets some time off.
Which MP takes the most leave, you think?
You want me to raise?
Name and shame.
You're not Yishun resident, I won't raise it for you.
Which
But-
MP takes the least leave, do you think?
I
Most
think
hardworking
as
MP.
I started, we're never on leave. Right now, with the advance of social media, emails, messages, it's a 24/7 job.
Okay, moving on. Hannah, take us to our next point.
Okay, so our next point is that we're kind of similar to our neighbours, kind of. I'm just going to throw all the ministers out there because this is my power. Then Minister for Manpower, Josephine Teo. I think it was also may have been in reply to you, could not be, but like in 2019, Singapore's leave entitlement is comparable to jurisdictions like Hong Kong and Taiwan, where our work culture is more similar to.
So it would be unfair to compare us to like a Scandinavian country or like Australia or like the United Kingdom and to like ask for the same provisions that we see in those countries.
I mean, the comparisons will be endless. So you raise some countries, and I can raise a few more. Malaysia has more. Japan has more. South Korea has more. East Timor has more. Yemen has more.
He
Well,
rapid
quite
down.
different.
Has more.
Yeah, bro.
I could go on and on,
Doing
but I
countries.
think the important part is that 10% of our workforce, resident workforce in Singapore, don't have more than 7 days. And so we can compare all we want with other countries, but there are Singaporeans here who need help and need a voice in Parliament.
I can't remember if you mentioned it earlier, but what was do you know the median pay of the 10%?
So in 2018, those that earning below 2,000 had an average of 12.5 days of annual leave. 2,000 to 4,999 had 16.7 days of annual leave. And then those earning above 5,000 had 20.7 days.
The higher you get paid, the more leave you tend to get, right?
And quite scarily, the figures are dropping. So that was 2018. In 2022, it dropped from 12.5 days to 12.4 days for those below 2,000. And then it dropped to from 16.7 to 16.3 days for those 2,000 to 4,999. And then the higher income of 5,000 and above, it dropped from 20.7 to 20.4. So as we are fighting for more annual leave entitlement, and the data actually shows that the companies are giving less now.
I should just point out, like, for Malaysia, if our viewers are not aware, so Malaysia has just actually one more, 8 days of minimum 8 days annual leave. But this is combined with like 16 days of public holiday, which is a lot more than ours.
How many
Paid
public holidays do we have in Singapore?
11.
11. Oh, okay.
It's kind of crazy actually to think that just across the border, they are enjoying more leave days than us.
So what you're saying is that
Do I just cross over?
we
Bye.
can't be seen to be losing to Malaysia. Is that what you're trying to say, Shah?
You cannot put stuff into my mouth, dude.
Oh, I'm not. I'm
That
just
sounds
trying
wrong.
I'm trying to clarify.
In this one tiny aspect, they have like a slightly better benefit.
Okay. Because
That's
I
it.
wouldn't want to be seen as like stoking some sort of like unfounded
What?
rivalry between like.
I did not say
Singapore-
that.
Oh, okay.
You said that.
No, I'm trying to clarify if that's what you're saying.
That's not what I'm
Oh,
saying.
that's not what you're saying. Okay.
Okay, back
They
to
have a
annual
slight
leave.
edge. They have a slight edge over us.
We should have Lewis here all the time to just moderate.
Yeah.
for
Maybe
us.
is this what it's like in Parliament as well when you're going back and forth with an MP?
Much more civil.
I thought that was quite civil. Was that not?
That's civil on for a us.
Oh, yeah.
They
it was
address
quite
each
civil.
other a lot more civilly. Like the
Off
name-
camera, like he will have a bruise. I'm joking. Like for legal reasons, I'm joking. Okay, but some countries, like there are only 12 countries that have lower annual leave entitlement days than Singapore. So Tanzania 3, Thailand 6, Brunei has the same as us 7, Nigeria 6, Philippines 5, China 5, Mexico 6, Kiribati nothing, Palau 1, Nauru
Kiribati
0,
actually.
USA 0, Micronesia 0. Just to quote some like other countries that have more than our 7-day minimum annual leave days. Finland minimum 30 days. Austria minimum 25 days. Yeah, I'm just thinking like, oh my gosh, what will I do if I have 30 days?
My only rebuttal would be for the US, and the US is 0 because it's just the way they don't have a minimum. But you see that without having that minimum, and it's been left up to the states or even to the companies, that's how the employees get exploited with that 0. So at least Singapore has that benchmark of 7.
I mean, of course, it's of course seven is better than 0. I mean, of course, it's good to have like a baseline, but we are here to argue that 7 is not enough. Actually,
Yeah, I guess the question is like whether it should be a guardrail or it should set the standard, right, for society.
I think the fact that some companies, especially companies that have lower wage workers, are using that as the benchmark, like literally 7 days only. That's why we should take the annual leave entitlement very seriously, and it should be the standard.
Should the government be responsible for
Let's move on. Let's move on.
for protecting like the basic rights of Singaporeans, or should the government be responsible for making sure that Singaporeans have a good life? It's a genuine question.
Both.
Honest question. Both.
Yeah, both. Yeah, I'm right.
I wouldn't be speaking about it if the data shows that 7 is really just a baseline. But again, 10% get the 7, and we've got to realize again that about 40% only get 14 days and below. And so we got to raise the baseline to be able to move and change mindsets of the employers.
Do you feel like if we set the baseline at like 14, for example, then companies would start offering to be competitive, I guess you'd start having to offer like more and more, and then like it could be like a slippery slope of like too much leave or something like that, and more Singaporeans going on holiday overseas instead of working.
Wouldn't. So again, remember, this change in policy will only affect the minority of companies. Majority are already doing the right thing. If I'm not wrong, it's about 64% that are getting about 15 days or more already.
64.6. Oh my god, you really remembered it.
So,
Well done.
It's burned into.
I wrote it down. Yeah, I got you. 64.6. He's right.
But could raising it to 14 days cause Singaporeans to be more discontented with their employees, right? Because think about it this way. Right? Like now, we know the minimum is 7 days, right? Which I didn't know actually until I researched this podcast. And so if you get a contract and you get 14 days, then you're like really thankful to your employer for giving you double the minimum. So then if we raise it to 14 days, if you're someone who just gets 14 days now, you'll be like, damn, this employer is so stingy. Why can't he give me like 20 days instead? Don't you think like this could threaten to tear apart the fabric of our society? What do you have to say about that?
I was like, let him cook, but I'm like,
Louis?
I sincerely don't believe it. People will think that way. I should always bring the other points in. I fight for childcare leave as well, parent care leave. Unfortunately, parent care leave is not legislated. And we have an aging population. Again, my dad passed on from cancer. He had a lot of medical appointments. With people that don't have enough annual leave, there's a chance that you can't even look after your parents. I've got 3 kids as well. I mean, there's only 6 days of childcare leave. That's really not enough, especially when it's a weird thing that I fought for as well, right? We have more kids, and your entitlement of childcare leave doesn't increase. It's the same. And so now with hand, foot and mouth disease, with COVID, you got to rely on not just your childcare leave, but your annual leave as well to be able to look after your kids. So you add all of that together, your child, your children, your parents, your own time to rest. Are we really sincerely believe that 7 days is enough?
Then you like stared right into my soul. Just don't make eye contact. Okay, we have a segment later to say real what we really think. I'll save it for then. Okay, but our next point is about taking too much leave can lead to bouts of unproductivity once you come back from leave.
Ironic, huh, Drew?
Yeah, well, okay, let me speak from the heart then. Right, I just came back from like a 2.5 month break.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Singaporeans being overworked and all that. So
You're not even Singaporean.
whoa, don't expose me on HD.
Your accent just exposed yourself, dude.
Well, I could have like lived
Okay,
overseas
moving
for a
on.
period
Yeah,
of
okay,
time.
Annual leave.
I could have gone to Europe and gotten this accent. Okay. So anyways, right. So I took a 2.5 month break, including non-paid leave, because unfortunately I don't have 2.5 months of leave. Coming back to work, it does take a while to like gear up, and it does take a while to like acclimatize to like, you know, having to be productive every day and having to do work every day. So apparently studies have shown that the longer you are away, the longer there is like a period of adjustment, where in this period you're like less motivated and you're coming down from your like vacation high. Another study showed that the so-called perfect trip is seen as like a 7 to 10 day stint. And then any longer than that, you don't get like any added benefits of being like extra well rested or something like that. So if a perfect holiday is 7 to 10 days, right? And I think I made this argument in the last episode. Then 7 days is enough. 7 days and like 11 days of public holidays is enough to do like a 7 to 10 day trip, at least once and maybe even twice a year, depending on how you stack up those public holidays and where you take like the long weekends and things like that. So there could be an argument made that scientifically, like 7 days might be enough to feel well rested.
Yes, scientifically, it is true. I think too long a vacation, of course, it doesn't help. But not everybody can use up all their annual leaves at once, and not everyone can just use up the annual leave to just go away and rest. And that's why having more annual leaves, having that baseline, we increase that, right? At least they can use some of those annual leave days to, you know, deal with their more personal issues, and then the others they can take it to like rest.
Exactly.
Yeah, bro. We're a good team. Yeah.
No, but okay, wouldn't the argument to that be to legislate for more flexible work arrangements instead? Or other things like childcare leave, parental leave, those things would help with that rather than increasing the amount of annual leave.
So again, not zero sum. I fight for that as well, to legislate parent care leave, to increase childcare leave, to introduce childcare sick leave. Again, legislate the right to work from home. But I think there's this, the irony is when you work from home, you really can't be looking after your kids. And I experienced that firsthand during COVID. Right? I think I've showed many photos of my kids on me while we're doing meetings on Zoom with to talk about really important issues. I think I did an interview once, and halfway through, my kid comes with a tissue paper.
I get it. Really.
So yes, you're at home, your kids are there, but often it's very hard to do both. And that's why even if you're working from home, you might still need the annual leave.
And also, again, bringing up like those who don't have the privilege of working from home.
Teachers, preschool teachers, nurses, those obviously they can never work from home, and they do need that annual leave or childcare leave.
Okay, done. Boom. Mic drop.
No, but actually, I do have a question for Louis. Like, how do you spend your annual leave then?
Time with my kids.
What's the last time you took like a break from work?
Honestly, we never do.
Because
It's
you're always
24/7,
you're
you're
always on
on
emails.
email, and there's always a request that we need to look into. Residents, we need to help. Social media posts, I manage my own social media.
Yeah,
Read the
request
comments.
to doing a podcast, right?
Do you cut your own like parliament videos? Like,
Yeah,
or
I
is
edit my
it
own.
someone helping you?
What do you
Yeah, I
do?
noticed that on like your Facebook, it's like, you know, every single time you ask a question, it's on. So you
It's
do
me.
that? Oh,
So I always get the strange messages. Can you please pass this to Mr. Louis? So it's Louis here. But again, I mean, I have that flexible work arrangements, but I can see, I value the time with my children a lot.
yeah.
So this weekend, I won't see them.
Oh
I have
no.
events I'll leave in the morning before they wake up. By the time I get home, they'll be asleep. So Saturday, Sunday is gone. And that's why, again, today I'll take them out for lunch. Friday, tomorrow night, I won't see them as well. There's events. And so again, I have that flexibility, but I know what it's like to not have enough time with your loved ones.
Well, look,
Speak
if you
that.
enjoy cutting like parliament videos, there's always a position here for you at Mothership, and I think you get a bit more work-life balance. You get to spend more time with your kids. You only have to work one weekend day a month. We promise. Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. No, just
Maybe when
in
I
case.
retire.
Yeah, maybe. Sorry, were you
No,
going to say
yeah,
something?
I was just gonna ask, like, how do you explain to your children that, like, oh, I don't have enough leave, or like, I don't have enough time to spend it with you because I have to work?
So I'm quite fortunate again in my line of work. I bring my kids to work. Sometimes. I mean, Ella, my eldest, even came to me to help refugees, help cleaners. She even comes overseas with me and then breakfast with the refugees. She comes along so I can explain to her what daddy does. And then again, from a young age, she knows why we need to speak up and care for others.
No work-life balance for your kids either.
Yeah, you see some coffee shop walks, they follow me to give up pamphlets. They have to earn their keep. You want something, you got to work for it.
You get them to teach them how to edit the videos as well, and then takes their load off you.
Soon, unfortunately, they're always on.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about our last point, which is how the minimum 7-day annual leave actually affects lower wage workers in Singapore the most.
The lower your salary, it looks like the lower your average number of annual leave. And for me, it's sad, again, that they're working hard for their family and trying to earn a decent living, but at the same time, they don't have enough time to spend with their family. Surely that's something that we need to fix.
Actually, like over the years, like you've been asking questions about this. Has there been an answer to you from like, you know, someone from MOM that you found satisfying on this topic?
I mean, there's the rebuttal has always been the business cost. Right? That's why I was saying 14 days looks like a very good middle ground, because 64.6%, right, are already giving 15 days or more. We're not really asking to move the needle significantly here.
Can I ask, do you know how they came up with the magical number of 7?
Yeah, why 7?
Yeah, why
Yes.
7?
I have no idea.
I always
Can you
wonder.
ask in like the next parliament sitting?
Mothership would like to know.
I think I've asked, but I can't remember the reply now.
Okay, I don't have any.
Yeah,
I
there's
don't
no-
have any.
Okay,
I'm
so
not
we
gonna
win,
reply.
right? That's it,
No,
right?
wait,
You
you have to do
get
our
to
closing
decide.
statement first.
So Drew would do it for the 4 team, and
Okay.
then you can do it for against team.
Are we going to do it now? Okay, which camera do I look into? Okay, I would like to make a request to the producer to start playing patriotic music behind my closing statement right now. Ever since I was a young boy and I can remember, my father has always instilled in me some very important values. Values like hope, values like faith. But I think the most important value that he instilled in me is freedom. And that's what I want to advocate for today. More freedom, but not freedom as you know it. Not freedom to just take as much leave as possible, but the freedom to make an agreement with your employer about what works best for you. I think that if we were to set the minimum leave too high, then that would take away the freedom to
They may
negotiate.
take our lives, but they'll never
To
take our
negotiate
freedom.
for better work arrangements, to negotiate for more flexible work arrangements. When you cast your vote for who is the best debater, I just want you to remember one thing. Are you
Freedom.
voting for tyranny? Are you voting for a government
Let
that
me write this down.
oversteps?
Let me just write it down.
Or are you voting for freedom? Thank you very much. Okay, the patriotic music can end now.
Come on, Luis, you got this.
I will keep mine really short. Which is a simple thing. Ask yourself, if you have only 7 days of annual leave, whether you're an employee or employer, do you really feel that it's sufficient, or would you want more? That's it.
That's how it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's about having the freedom to say it short or having the freedom to go a bit longer. Now the debate is over. So it's time for our regular segment, Say Real. So this is where we get to say how we really feel about this topic. Syah, why don't you start first?
What I think.
Yeah, what do you think?
There's
About
not
annual leave, not him.
Alright, I was ready to
How about
like go
Cristiano
full on.
Ronaldo? You can share
Thank you
that
for
as well.
stopping me. I was gonna start with the mullet, but okay. To be honest, I'm someone who leave days, I don't care, which is not a great attitude to have, just saying. But whenever I think about the data and lower wage workers, it's actually quite crazy. And I do see that, with some of my friends, their parents they are lower wage workers, and it really is quite intense how they really don't get a lot of freedom. They don't get a lot of freedom to just take leaves as and when they like, and it's quite crazy. I'm very aware that I'm in a very privileged position, but that's not the case for everyone. And I think something needs to be done with the minimum 7-day annual leave.
I don't actually know of people that have 7 days, which kind of shows the privileged position that I'm in. But I totally agree with Syah as well. I do have a tendency of not being able to take leave well. Only when, my often leaves are expiring, I gotta just clear it all at one shot. I feel like it kind of speaks more about the working culture that we have here. Just in general, no Mothership, yeah. I like my job a lot. I have so much fun.
I think for me, I guess the genuine question in my head, right, is whether we should see government as setting the guardrails, or whether we should see government as setting the standards for what a good life is. We talk about things like minimum wage and stuff like that. Those are also part of this whole like equation. And as you pointed out, I think the most persuasive argument for me is that like it tends to be lower waged workers who have like that bare minimum 7 days. Have you actually met anyone who has just 7 days of leave, like personally in
Plenty.
your
So we help a lot of our lower income kids. So we bring them on outings and we try and make sure the parents come along. And again, many find it very difficult to get their leave. Many really do have that 7 days only. So for example, next month we have a trip to Malacca. So residents who can pay will pay. Residents who are unable to afford, we pay for them. And again, this mother can't make it. She can't get the leave. And that's always a pity because I realize again, fundamentally we need to solve that. They need to have some time with their loved ones. Otherwise, they're just going to work every day trying to earn the money and the kids don't have time with the parents. That's another part of the problem.
How far away do you think we are from actually seeing the annual leave increase? If you had to guess.
I couldn't.
No?
You have to ask all those people that
Do you feel like you've
mentioned.
gotten closer over the 5 years that you've been advocating for this?
I couldn't tell for this one. I mean, for many other topics, I mean, again, it takes some time. But civil service, I mean, the public service is also the largest employer. And so for many things I'm fighting for, the government as an employer is already doing very well. We already give parent care leave. We already give childcare sick leave on a per child basis. You know, I just fought for lactation rooms as well. Government buildings, plenty of lactation rooms. And that's why I keep saying it's a weird thing. We do all this for the people who work for us, but what about the people we serve?
Yeah. Maybe can you give us like an insight into how Parliament worked, right? Because obviously you have the sessions where you get to ask
That'll be a
the
separate
questions.
podcast already.
Of the House of Cards. No, but do you ever have like informal conversations with, you know, your colleagues who are in the ministry?
Yeah, plenty.
Yeah. Do you like, you should just like challenge them to like an arm wrestle. If I beat you in an arm wrestle, if you can beat the Minister for Manpower in an arm wrestle, then he should have to grant like more than 7 days. What do you think?
I wish it works this way. Nah.
Yeah, I think you could beat the Minister in an arm wrestle.
But I mean, it's not just the debates we have in Parliament, but of course, after that, during our break times, we talked. We just got to find that middle ground.
I mean, if it is like a no-brainer, as you say it is, and to me, and I think to us, it seems like a no-brainer, what do you think is the biggest thing stopping the government from increasing it from 7 days?
I mean, a lot of the things I fight for in Parliament will entail some business costs. Same, I remember the migrant workers being transported in the back of lorries. It comes down to business costs. Is it safe? We've all agreed it's not safe. But then it comes down to business costs. Are we overworked? I mean, the plenty of surveys to show we're overworked. So we're doing many things, but again, we're worried about business costs. But again, that's why I think we can look at it with a different pair of eyes, is to see that actually, if you give them more rest, a more well-rested workforce could be a more productive one. It was the same with my first German motion where I raised about more leave for parents with preterm babies and multiples. You can force them to come to work, but do you really think they're paying attention at work when their babies are in the ICU? Probably not. Give them some time off, look after the kids, come back. I think they'll be a better employee.
I agree, full stop. Do you think Singapore can have a 4-day work week? That's
I
not
don't
bad.
have the data for that one now.
It's not something that you are looking to advocate for in the future?
My worry about the 4-day work week is that the employers might just pack everything into the 4 days. And that might be a little bit more stressful.
How do you think we can encourage employers to look out for their employees more?
Yeah, even if you have more than 7 days, right? Like I can, like, it doesn't happen here, thankfully, but like I can imagine like there are employers who would like begrudge you taking leave.
So we have many. I mean, like I raised it earlier, the tripartite standards for work-life harmony, and now the tripartite guidelines for flexible work arrangements. So many tripartite guidelines and standards out there to at least give employers some sense and understanding of how to look after their employees. But you're right, at the end of the day, it comes down to culture. And I think this big step of the tripartite guidelines for flexible work arrangements is a step forward, so that we go away from the traditional mindset that you have to see your employee at work looking at the laptop. Focus more of the end product rather than just seeing someone at the work desk. That would be quite a major shift in mindset really, and I'm glad we're starting it this year, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Okay, I think that brings us to the end of today's episode. As usual, we've put up a poll in our YouTube community page to let you guys decide who won. Maybe I'll take this moment to remind you that you're not voting for the argument that you like the most. You're voting for who you think presented the argument the best. So head over there and let us know who you think won.
And of course, you guys know the drill. The speaker with the most points at the end of season 2 will be crowned Master Debater. which is something that I think one guy really wants to win.
And just like another gentle reminder that the views expressed in this podcast do not represent the views of Mothership or other associated parties.
Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube. And if you are listening on Spotify, leave us a rating. I think we'd really appreciate it. I think Lewis would really appreciate it as well. And we really appreciate you for coming on today's episode and sharing more about, this annual leave cause that you've been fighting for.
Finally, thank you, Audio-Technica, for powering the audio for this podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so
it was
much.
fun.
And
That was
thank you
fun.
guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys in the next episode.